Stop whopping me.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
That's right. Congratulations, Larry Krueger. You are a consistent drop. Not a drip, but a drop here on Willard and Dibs. Larry.
Hello.
Hello, Larry.
Yeah, whoa.
Hello.
Jeez.
Let's go live to Larry Krueger where he is now awake. Hi, Larry.
What's going on, guys? Sorry I missed that. We were just hooking up my phone.
Yeah, we were congratulating you because you're now a drop that we
Stop whopping me.
Yeah, we use that all the time now on the show. So you're like on the show with us every day.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
I knew I could work myself in there somehow, some way.
Very, very exciting.
Just put that on the top of the resume now.
Yeah, I got to go to Kinko's and update.
Oh my gosh!
Kinko's.
Oh, that was an amazing.
You're so cute.
That was an amazing reference.
So great.
Do those exist anymore?
I don't know. They used to be very prevalent.
I know.
Big time. We had one next to the Blockbuster that's also no longer there.
Larry Krueger with us. We're checking in on the Niners. Hey, did you hear Howard Eskin on the morning show say that Sirianni is better than Shanahan and it's not even close?
Oh, Eskin. He's got to stop drinking. My God. What the heck? Day drinking.
I mean, what do you think?
Sirianni's a clown. Sirianni is a clown.
Now, wait a minute. That feels like you're going a little far in the other direction. Why is Sirianni a clown?
Well, just because he is. I mean, we've been watching football for decades. When was the last time in the middle of a game, when the camera finds a coach, they starts mugging for the cameras? He's the only head coach in like 4 decades who's ever done that.
Well, we had McVay run into the end zone and start flexing and posing, so it does happen.
There was that.
Yeah, there's that. And, a lot of times now coaches want to inject themselves into the proceedings, but you can't deny that Sirianni's got his club playing pretty well over the 3 years he's been there.
There's no question, but did you guys see the video of him coming off the field heckling Chiefs fans at Arrowhead?
Well, let me ask you this just to play devil's advocate, Larry. Why does a coach have to act the way we want them to act? And the second part of that is, like, we've propped up Bill Belichick for years now, and I would argue that the way he acts is in some ways equally as odd, but it's in like a more well-traveled way. We're not bothered by that, so why can't I ask that? Why can't a coach act different?
Well, you can act any way you want, but we can react to the way you act any way we want. So, I mean, he can act any way he wants. He's not breaking any laws. He's just going against the norms of American sports coaches. I mean, no other manager, NBA coach, or NFL head coach mug for the cameras and talk trash to fans and that kind of thing. Sirianni's very Philly. And I'm sure they love him in Philly. And I'm not saying anything about his competency. I mean, you're right. I mean, his club is fantastic, and he's probably got something to do with that. I just personally, he rubs me wrong. Every time I see him, he just seems like he's I don't know. Maybe we're too much alike. Maybe I'm obnoxious and confrontational, and maybe so is he, and so I don't like him.
Yeah, you're obnoxious in different ways, and maybe that's where the difference actually stops. But you're equally proficient in what you do. I'll give you both credit for that, Larry. You look at the Philly team, and they're 10-1, and yet they're underdogs at home. Does it feel like Sirianni is the kind of guy who will weaponize that fact and get his guys extra motivated, knowing that they're home dogs?
Oh, I gotta think so. I mean, they're everybody in pro sports. I mean, it's a long grind. Guys are they're searching the globe for disrespect of any kind, right? So they're looking for something to give them a little extra edge, and I'm sure he'll use that. He said all the right things at the presser, though. Hey, they're very talented. They got a really talented team, and I'm sure though behind the scenes, he is like, we're underdogs in our own house. And, they also feel like, the 49ers didn't give them their flowers when they won the Super Bowl, when they won the NFC Championship game last year. But I don't know what your guys' read on that was, but my read on that was not disrespect for Philly. It was more of just the 49ers' belief that Brock Purdy is special and that they had a great plan and that they were very much in that game to win it last year. I know it played to the Eagles and their fans like sour grapes.
Yeah,
but I don't think it was. I think it was more like, we believe in Brock.
I think even in a broader sense, I think it's completely fair when you lose your quarterback to be like, yeah, that's going to make us lesser than, and so that's not an even playing field anymore. I think that's true in all sports. It's why we're not going to rip the Bengals when they miss the playoffs this year. But along the lines of that conversation about the spread, Larry, I don't know if you heard earlier in the week because I was surprised by that spread too. So we've talked about it a lot. I reached out to my buddy who's an odds maker, and I wonder if you heard his response and what you think of it. I asked him what are the key points for why the Niners came up favored? And this is what he said. Higher power rating. They're just better on both sides of the ball. You agree with that?
You know what? Power rating tied to point differential, I can understand why you would look at the point differential and say the Niners are just a bigger, stronger, more powerful team on both sides of the ball. But then, there's also something to be said for winning close games and finding a way to win, as Fred Warner kind of described them, the grimy games. And is there greater value in being able to win close games, or is there greater value in kind of the point differential way of looking at football? How powerful of a team do we have? I could argue that either way. I really could.
You look at yards per play, Niners are number 2, Philly's 10th, and you look at yards per play allowed, the Niners rank higher than Philadelphia does. So close games are one thing, but just in general, the success of one team versus their opponent play to play seems to favor the 49ers. But what about the matchup, Larry, especially the Eagles' elite offensive line against the Niners' ferocious D-line? Who do you think has the edge in that matchup?
Well, I mean, Dibs, you got to say Philly just from the standpoint of they really won this matchup last year. But then, also last year is a bad game to point to because the quarterback was knocked out. And as soon as the quarterback got knocked out, Philly went to like a very run-dominant game plan. And they ran 44 times for close to 150 yards. They only got 3.4 a carry. But there were several examples of, Kinlaw getting moved in the run game and the Niners D-line getting moved. And I think you're focusing on the right part of this game. I think this is where this game is going to be won or lost. If the Niner defensive line can stand up, they're going to win. And if the Niner defensive line can't stand up, they're going to lose.
I feel like the other side of the ball, same question, is a fair one as well, because while the Niners may have the glitziest defensive line in football, Eagles, no slouch, and the Niner offensive line, it's good that they're healthy, but what do you think about that matchup?
Well, I think the Niners are prepared for this matchup better right now than they've been at any point this year. Forster. I talked to Chris Forster today, guys.
Whoop.
Thank you. And he said that John Feliciano, is kind of an upgrade on Burford in a pass protection sense and in an experience level. Stop whooping me.
Delayed.
But then also, Jalen Carter, Chris Forster talked up Jalen Carter, and he said that he's just an explosive pass rusher, and he's hard to contain. So I got to think both. I think the Eagles probably, if I got to go, try to be unbiased, and I try to do my best to be unbiased for you guys, I think the Eagles have a slight edge on paper on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
And that's really where the Eagles have been so dominant this year in terms of winning those close games, is, getting it done late in games, the overtime with the Jalen Hurts QB draw, where Kelsey pulls out and just dominates the defender for Buffalo and allowed Hurts to get in from 11 yards out. How big of a factor, though, is the scheme and what Shanahan's trying to do? We talk a lot on the show about 21 personnel and Brandon Ayuk's role as a blocking wide receiver. Does that help to offset maybe not being able to win in the trenches as much as you normally do?
Well, I think there's one area, Dibs, that's really clear in the Niners' favor, and that is the Eagles have struggled, if you look at the numbers, to defend in the intermediate middle. And I think that's where the 49ers really feast. I mean, think about it. You guys were standing right next to me in camp this summer when Purdy and Lance and Darnold were going over the middle to Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey. The Niners' passing game lives in that intermediate middle, and the Eagles are struggling to defend in the intermediate middle, and I think that sets up beautifully for the 49ers in this game.
Larry Krueger is with us here, and we're whopping him on 95.7 The Game on Willard and Dibs. And by the way, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I don't need to tell our audience this. You're well known around these parts, Larry, and everybody knows that you are a football nerd. So,
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So I want to ask you what you see on the brotherly shove. Why does it work for them?
Okay, I think it works for really 2 or 3 reasons. One is Kelsey is very compact and powerful. And he's a future Hall of Famer. He gets low, and maintains great leverage. So that's number one. Number 2, they usually choose that hole between Landon Dickerson, who's the left guard, and Kelsey. Dickerson is a huge run, at the point of attack run guy. I mean, he's 335 pounds. He's a great drive blocker. So that they run usually right between those 2 guys. Then you mix in Hurts, who has crazy leg strength. I mean, if you go back and look at some of the Bruce Feldman freaks list, articles that he writes, I mean, Hurts was always on there. I mean, he's got enormously strong legs. He's got the kind of strength in his legs that usually you see in linemen or, defensive stars. So he spent a lot of time in the weight room. So he's got enormous leg strength. He's running between 2 really great offensive linemen who are great at the point. And then I think the one factor that nobody talks about is they don't blow the whistle. So, he doesn't his knee doesn't hit the ground. They get a first surge. And then if they get halted, then they get a second surge. Now you get the guys pushing Hurts from behind. I think if there's one thing that I'd love to see in this game, I'd love to see the Niners not just try to beat the tush push from in front, but from the side by sending the guys off the edges to push the pushers. Because that second push, that third push, if they don't make it in the first go-round, they're not blowing the whistle, and they're getting a second surge and a third surge. And I just think that if you're going to really, you can beat them on the first surge, but if you're going to really stop them, you got to somehow interrupt the pushers, the guys in the backfield who are going to push Hurts in the back.
There's a Salt and Pepper song in there somewhere, Larry, in that entire answer. I don't know where it lies. What about being able to subvert the entire thing by not only getting lower than Kelsey, but blowing the whole thing up from the bottom up? Have you seen any defense try to do that, to try to just basically get a couple of guys to lay on the ground so that if they're trying to push through you, they got to actually push over you?
It's a good point. I mean, as they say, it's a leverage battle and the low man wins. And Kelsey and Dickerson get low and Hurts gets low, but he gets low, but he doesn't hit his knee on the ground, so the play's not dead. So yeah, I mean, that's the one counter. I've actually heard people say, play off the ball and let them go low. And then, when they lay down, basically just jump over the top of them. You saw Fred Warner try to hurl himself over the top. I think it was against Kirk Cousins, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In a short yardage play on the game about a month ago. I just think that, the key, and it's funny, we asked this question today, and Steve Wilkes said, what the key is just not to get into those situations. It's to win on first and second down. And ultimately, you just try to, what you got to hope for is when you get to third down, it's 3rd and 5 and not 3rd and 3. 3rd and 3 plays right into their hands. If you can get them at 3rd and 5, I think you got a real shot.
Larry, what do you make of the undertone of the whole thing? I know this is usually just for fans and media. It's not like talk matters when you're actually out there scheming. But the tone that has been created between these two teams affects the matchup this time and potentially in the future. In what way?
It's funny about that. I've been wondering about that all week. I asked Brock Purdy about that today, about, the fact that he's, the media people that I'm talking to. I talked to two different Philly people this week who have radio shows out there. And I said, give me what's the theme? Stop it. What's the theme? What's the theme of the reaction to the Niners? And the constant theme was like, you know what? They've got great respect for Kyle, great respect for the Niners defense, great respect for the Niners weapons, but they don't believe that Brock Purdy, who they keep calling Mr. Irrelevant, can lead the 49ers into Philly and beat a Jalen Hurts-led Eagle team in Philly. And I just think that level of disrespect for Purdy is, I think startling considering what he's actually accomplished. But I don't know that it has any real effect. Like Debo's talked his game, and Reddick has talked his game. And at the end of the day, though, it's how you play. It's not about who says what. It really isn't. I mean, it's really about boring things like execution and taking care of the football and that kind of thing. I will say this, though. There was one thing that came up today, guys, that I thought was really interesting. And I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but Brock Purdy said today that if it rains a little, he won't wear a glove. But if it rains a lot, he might wear a glove, and that he's worn a glove at Iowa State. So I thought that was kind of an interesting revelation. It has nothing to do with the trash talk, but I do think that's interesting because we've never seen Brock wear a glove, and it sounds like there's at least a chance if the rain's heavy in this game that he might.
Yeah, I hope he does. Mark and I actually were getting into a little debate over Brock's ability to handle a slippery ball and, whether or not he would go to a glove. So that's definitely something to watch. I'm also fascinated, Larry, by the defensive matchups and what Steve Wilkes is going to do with Philadelphia's great receivers. Do you match them up man-to-man? Do you let Charvarius Ward travel and stick on the Philly top receiver? How do you think they're going to approach it from a secondary standpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question because last week against DK, Mooney Ward traveled with him, and that was something they had decided before the game just because they really liked the matchup. Would Mooney do the same with A.J. Brown, who's got deceptive speed and is almost as physically as imposing as Metcalf? Possibly. I know this. They feel really confident in their versatility, where they feel like Mooney can play either side. Lenore can play inside or outside. Ambry can play either side. My guess is they don't travel and they just play sides. That they like that approach against DK, but they won't take that approach in this game. That would be my guess.
Larry, did you feel like you got enough WAPs? Are you ready to go?
Yes. I was talking to Chris Forster today.
Who else did you talk to today?
I was talking to Ambry Thomas today, and Ambry actually told me that that he played against Devontae Smith in the bowl game, Michigan against Alabama, and he said he did well against Devontae Smith. I was talking to Eric Armstead earlier today, and he said that he's a big fan of Willard and Dibs.
Oh.
How's his foot, by the way? Is he all right?
I don't know how the foot is, Dibs, but he says he's going to go either way. And then I asked him about, Javon Kinlaw, because Kinlaw in the Ambry interception last week had this ridiculous push. And Armstead is a big supporter of Kinlaw. Kinlaw talks about Armstead guys like it's his dad, like it's his big brother. I mean, he admires Armstead. And so I got some good stuff today with Armstead talking about how before the game that Kinlaw will come up to him and fire him up and say, hey, man, these guys can't block you. And so he's like, as much support as I give Javon gives it right back to me. So those two guys are pretty tight.
Hey, Larry, guess what?
What's that?
I'm going to the Warrior game tonight.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Are you going to be sitting in Joe's seats, his bunker suite, like we once did that one time?
Wow.
Even your question's even a drip. Like, oh my God, Larry.
You know, that night I was talking to Raymond Ritter.
Remember that? Will you be sitting in the same place that I once sat?
Yeah.
No, I won't be, Larry. How about that? I won't be.
Oh, look at you. Will you be sitting in better seats than Steiny and Guru had a couple weeks ago?
No.
No.
Well, wait, which game? When they were up high or when they were down low?
They were in the upper tank.
Yeah. No, well, I will not. I will not be in the upper tank.
You know what?
There you go.
Do you guys talk to Kerr anytime soon?
Yesterday.
We did last night, and, I might run into him tonight. Anyway.
You might want to mention to him that, hey, you know what? Let's with Moses Moody's playing well, let's roll with it, buddy.
Oh, come on. You obviously did not.
We forgot to ask him that yesterday, Larry.
Stop.
Jeez.
Stop.
Let's roll with Moody.
You didn't hear the interview, did you?
No, I missed it, Dan.
Yeah, he came right out of the gate, and he said, I had a bad night. And I said, why? What would you do differently? And he said, well, I should have stayed with Moses Moody. That was a terrible decision. That's a direct quote.
Good. See, you guys, that's what I love about you guys. You guys are heavy hitters. You'll ask tough questions. I like that.
And good ones, too.
We just grilled you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
I'm going to go. I got to go, have a snack.
Yeah. Go get a water. Just wash that one off. Okay, Larry?
I was talking to my wife about getting a water after the Willard and Dibs appearance.
Yeah, just hang up on him now.
She's worthy of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. All right, Larry. Have a good one, brother.
See you, buddy. There you go.
Later.
All right. There's
Stop whopping me.
Larry Krueger on 95.7 The Game.